Hi everyone, this is Alan Rosinski of Metro Manhattan Office Space. Good afternoon. Now, anyone with experience signing a lease in New York City knows that most commercial landlords have a clause in the lease called a Good Guy Guarantee, a limited personal guarantee. Now, any form of a personal guarantee is always intimidating, and you should really try to avoid signing this. However, there's good reason for Good Guy guarantees, and they really are pretty standard, and they're very little threat to commercial tenants. So let me explain what they are, what they mean, what the implications are, and why you shouldn't be too concerned. What a Good Guy Guarantee means is that you are promising the landlord that your company, the entity that signs a lease, is going to pay the rent at all times while they remain in the space. And in the event that they break the lease, that they leave early, they're going to be current on their rent. So what you're guaranteeing on a personal level is that if your company stays in the space and doesn't pay the rent for that period of time, that you are going to personally be responsible, that the landlord could go after you personally for that period of time that the company remained in the space without paying rent. So I'm going to give you an example here. Let's say you sign a 3-year lease, 36-month lease, and after 18 months, a year and a half, your company can't make it, and you break the lease, and you're current on the rent. Your company is going to lose the security deposit. Your landlord could conceivably sue the company, but there's no liability for you, the Good Guy Guarantor, assuming you have guaranteed the lease. Now let's look at a very slightly different scenario. You sign a 3-year lease, 36 months. After 18 months, your company stops making rent payments. They can't make it, but the landlord has to go to court, and it takes them 6 months to get you out. In that case, you personally will be responsible for the rent for those 6 months. And the landlord really wants to avoid scenarios like that. Everything is expensive in New York City. Lawyers, litigation, the courts are slow. It's a landlord's nightmare. That's why they have this limited guarantee where an individual in a company agrees to this limited guarantee. Now, for 90% of the leases have this. In some instances, they can be negotiated out. I'll give you an example. A large public company with 5,000 employees, and no one's going to be willing to be the Good Guy Guarantor, and landlords understand that. What also can happen, let's say you're really against this idea. You don't unconditionally, you will not personally guarantee anything. Will the landlord accept that in New York City? They may not. If they do accept it, there's going to be a price. So let's say if the security deposit would have been 3 or 4 months without a Good Guy Guarantee, there'll be 5 or 6 months with a Good Guy Guarantee, a couple of months more. Now, I don't know how much it'll be, but it would certainly be more. So in order to make this concept clear, because it's important in New York City real estate, and it's really a lease clause which is particular to New York City, I've gone through about 25 or 30 leases, and I've taken bits and pieces of each lease, and I've written my own Good Guy Guarantee. I've written 2 Good Guy Guarantees, a simple version, which you wouldn't need an attorney to understand, and a more complex version. So I'm going to show you these Good Guy Guarantees, so you see really there's not too much to be concerned about, and above all, so you have a better understanding, because this is something of an abstract concept. Good Guy Guarantee number 1 is really simple. It lists conditions A to D for the Good Guy Guarantee to apply. The first one is you have to vacate the premises and surrender the demised premises broom clean. You got to leave, and the space has to be clean. No big deal. Condition number 2, you got to give the owner the key, any alarm codes. That's it for your premises. And condition number 3 is you got to write a letter from the principals of the company to the landlord stating that the demised premises are surrendered and vacant and free of all tendencies of claims of right therein. You're telling the landlord you're leaving. You can't, for some reason, you got to vacate the space. You also, condition number 4 is you got to be current on the base annual rent and additional rent, which are items like electricity or water sprinkler guard. And condition number 4 is actually got to be current on all rents and additional rents. And in addition, you would have had to comply with conditions A, B, and C. They state in the paragraph afterwards that even if you comply with this, the landlord's going to take your security deposit. This is actually a very simple good guy guarantee. So this is about the simplest you could get. I've compiled this from a few easy good guy clauses I've seen over the years. Now, this particular good guy guarantee, I compiled this from several documents, and this is on the more complicated side where the landlord is spelling out in more detail what this clause means. But the biggest difference here is that there's a 60-day period after the surrender where you have to pay rent. This is very important. This is so the landlord has time to relet the space. If you break a lease, the landlord is going to take a hit because they may have downtime. So in order to reduce the likelihood or minimize downtime, they're going to want a couple of months where you're paying rent afterwards. Actually, what happens more frequently is they make you notify, the landlord asks as part of the good guy guarantee that you notify them several months in advance. It could be 6 months, it could be 3 months, it could be 2 months. This is negotiable. But this is so the landlord has time to find a new tenant, because if you break the lease and you leave in the middle of the lease, the landlord's going to take a financial hit because they don't want empties in their building. So I hope you find this information helpful. I'm convinced and I'm hopeful that the economy is going to start to recover. Rents are going to be significantly lower in New York City, and there's going to be a lot of new businesses which are going to be started. There's going to be a lot of leasing activity. Companies are going to relocate. They're going to be going from larger spaces to smaller spaces. You're going to have certain companies that have been performing very well who are going to see this as an opportunity to expand. I happen to believe that people, to some extent, will be returning to their offices, that it's going to be, when this is all behind us, a good time to start a new business. So I hope this information is useful. And you may also want to take a look at my video regarding security deposit, because that's something which is related to the Good Guy Guarantee in a certain respects. If you have any questions about Good Guy Guarantees, about the commercial real estate market in New York City, or any suggestions regarding potential topics, please tweet them to me. My Twitter handle is at Metro Manhattan, and feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until the next time, take care and have a nice afternoon.